in the 90s, I feel like that was the era in which middle-aged people, middle class people could finally afford tons of shit from China. I just remember in my childhood where you would hear about, I grew up in a very, very middle class suburb. Everyone was doing fine. Australia in the 90s was just kind of like a middle class heaven where everyone was doing fine. And every house was filled with junk and just random shit. And the very few instances of where I found out that people's parents were struggling financially, or even in the periods where in which my parents were struggling financially, didn't really stop the amount of shit that was just inside our houses. And it's like, I'm sure there was a lot more, it was like tip of the iceberg. I'm sure a lot of people were struggling financially, but just like the facade, the content inside people's households were, it was insane. And it's probably just a symptom in terms of their parents, our parents, millennials' parents grew up with parents who were dealing with wartime shit, rations, and just people dying at fucking war and like not being able, having to start again essentially in the 50s after World War II. So that's probably going to make you a bit cuckoo in terms of like, you know, hoarding or just never really feeling comfortable inside your own house, or yeah, just the economy kickstarting up again. And then we had all the fucking cocaine and the wild shit in the 80s. Greed is good. And then those people got spat out to the suburbs in the 90s, and they're like, well, I'm not doing coke off Jordan Belfort's taint anymore, but I still want to have some fun. Let's pop down to the local department store and buy a ton of shit we don't need. So anyway, I felt like that was the 90s. And then because yeah, every generation reacts or rebels against the one that came before it, or at least their parents. And the millennials were kind of like, yeah, do we need all this shit? At least some of us were. The minimalism movement came about. And then in many ways, that decision got made for us, in terms of ones living in, people who finish university and then just being like, all right, I've got a university debt and I'm about to start working and it's going to be pretty rough, but I guess I'm on somewhat of a similar trajectory to the generations before me. Got to start somewhere. And then, yeah, just major cities becoming unaffordable and being unable to build a life for yourself, nor never mind pay off your debt, and being completely fucked. So I guess, I guess that's kind of like, well, I hope you like minimalism because that's the fucking medicine you're going to be getting. So I guess the thing that I've always, probably from my a childhood hangover, has been like, we're buying all this shit, but someone's making it. Like someone's not literally the fucking peasant in China who's been co-opted by big business and forced to move to a city. I'm talking about like the scumbag who's fucking designing it, packaging it, or whatever. Like the suits who are kind of like the creators, essentially. And so I always thought that that was slightly more, that they're the rich cunts, right? Because even in the suburbs that I grew in, the ones where they're like, oh, his dad's real rich, he's got boats. It's like, what is it? The Chris Rock joke, um the basketball players on an NBA team, they're rich. The white guy who owns the team, he's wealthy. It's like you got the participants in capitalism, and then you got the fucking owners of capitalism. And the participants get distracted by shiny things. They feel like that is the object of earning money. It's to fulfill, it's like the life cycle of money. It's like you work, you get some money, and then you buy shit. It's how the fucking caterpillar becomes a butterfly. It's the physical manifestation of your labor and your sweat and your blood and your tears. And I always felt like, well, there's got to be another way because that seems like unfulfilling to a certain degree. I feel like I'm pretty good at when I buy something, forcing myself to remember this is a good piece of equipment. Think back to how much you enjoyed it. Like my iPhone. I sometimes get warm and fuzzies from my iPhone because I'm like, it's cost me a few $100. I don't really remember how much. And it lasted me fucking 5 years. If I could take the amount of money I spent up front and then divide the amount of hours I used the phone, perhaps frivolously, a large percentage. However, it still held my attention. It provided a utility. So I've got my bang for my fucking buck from that phone and the amount of like connection it enabled. And I don't know, the certain aspect of like joy and being able to connect with people all over the world. You got to feel pretty good about certain things. And if you do that with a few things, you don't get too kind of like high on the capitalism trip. Lost my fucking train of thought. But essentially I was like, yeah, I want to be the other guy though. Because I don't want to be just the random schmuck who's kind of like trading my time for stuff and ending up like my parents and every other family in my cul-de-sac growing up, filling their house with shit they don't really need. And so I feel like the creator, and that's a broad term, right? Can be creatively, could be like in business. Anyone who's trying to do something new or kind of like not, but just bend to the will of the predetermined culture. You're trying to bring something new to the table is essentially what I mean by creator. You're creative. You've got a progressive idea, a new way of doing things, and not just in a fucking like, let's create a new app to do the same thing, but let's dress it up, mutton dressed up as lamb, the same shit, different face bullshit. Actual innovation where it's different from before. I wanted to be one of these people. And so you think like that's a more noble path. And then you try and do that and you realize it's fucking hard to change the world. It is really fucking difficult. I feel like it's a combination of talent, hard work, luck, and perseverance. And yeah, I feel like when people make fun of billionaires and stuff like that, and I think sure, certain billionaires have acted like total scumbags. But I also feel like they're almost like Sam Hyde on his podcast was talking about the other day, where if you like unleash technology on the world, and this is not like a Sam Hyde original thought, he was paraphrasing someone else, but the technology will go, it will fill all the holes just because it has a mind of its own type of thing. And I feel like that's what happens with billionaires who get lucky and they're talented and they work hard and they persevere, is that like their idea gets a bunch of momentum, and then it's kind of like they're still part of it, but they're a very small part of it at a certain point, and it just becomes this behemoth. And they're not so much so big to fail, too big to fail rather, but it's all more just like they're going to do what it's going to do at a certain point. And yeah, so I feel like it's kind of stupid to look at individuals who start companies or who retain a large amount of ownership. It's more something to do with how we proliferate or share technology within us, and just the kind of like mob rule in which we operate by, and the power of numbers and like the madness of crowds type of shit, where once it reaches the tipping point, then everyone uses it and it just facilitates extreme amount of growth and a momentum shift. And so that happens, but to actually get to that point, to get to that tipping point where that's even possible, is very difficult. So you default back to being a consumer because you're in theory working on your idea to become this creator who's going to like change the fucking world. And while you're doing that, you just have to consume like every other Tom, Dick, and Harry. And you think to yourself, well, what is the fucking point? Am I do I even want to change things for noble reason? I want to do it differently, but it's mainly just a reaction from where in which I came. And at a certain point, you're like, I'm always going to be kind of a consumer. I'll just be consuming different stuff in different ways. And yeah, the billionaire example is a good one because like you're a guy who comes up with an idea, maybe it's your idea and you own it for 5 years, but then other people get involved and it gets corrupted. I think there are certain businesses where it's like if you're a fucking landscaper or something and you could amass a small team, but it's done your way. But after like 5 employees, then it's not really yours anymore. So never mind a big fucking idea that changes the world. So long story short, I'm um I'm trying to be a creator because I feel like that's the way my brain has been wired to kind of like try and bring something new to the table. But I'm wondering if that's even possible. I think it's possible, but I think there's a lot of luck and stuff involved. And we're all consumers. And it's just the way we play the game. And even if you don't want to play the game, enough people still do. So you and unless you want to outcast yourself and live on a alpaca farm, uh, then you're going to be a part of it. So let's consume together and create something beautiful. All right. That was a weird one. Catch you on the next one. Bye.